All right. Thanks. We're live. Thank you. All right, everybody. We are back live again. Thank you for the break. And we are going to reconvene with our agenda. We have had the library presentation. We'll now continue with item number 6, operating budget discussion. As I mentioned to council previously in this evening, administration, that I believe we will start on page 9 and we will tackle the 4 sections outlined on page 9, which Mr. Blanco mentions kind of the meat and potatoes of the budget in 1 page or less. So the first section talks about maintaining services, increase and decrease in revenues, increase, decrease in expenses, and looking at an increase in the tax levy of 2.8%. We'll then move on to growth in services, showing a net of -1.9. Moving on then after that to impact of council and other entities, an increase of 2.6. And then service enhancement on the bottom of the page 9 at 3.9, taking us to an proposed overall increase of 7.4%. So with that, let's begin, as I mentioned, on the top of page 9 in the section called maintaining services. And then at this point, open up to council to make some discussion and observations and concerns and motions perhaps about maintaining services. Councilor McGough-Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion that I'd like to put up on the screen here. Now, sorry if that caught anyone off guard. No, Shalane's onto it as always. So I'd like to move the motion, then I'll speak to it and provide some background around it about why I'm proposing this. So the motion is that the 2023 proposed operating budget, as set out in attachment 1 of the November 30th, 2022 council budget agenda package, be postponed, and that an interim 2023 operating budget be brought forward to the December 13th, 2022 regular council meeting for approval.
Excuse me, Sam. Sorry, are you making the motion or just?
I'm making that motion.
That's what I thought. Thank you. I missed the first part of what you said. I apologize. Thank you.
And if it's okay, I'll speak to it. So when I looked at this budget, obviously the first thing that you jump right to as a councillor is what is the tax increase? That's just politically that's just what you do. And I've always gone through as a councillor and tried to avoid that number, not focus on that, but focus on what is needed for Beaumont. My concern here with this budget is given the large increase that is in front of us. I think just through conversations with council and discussions in council meetings here, I think that there's going to be a challenge to approve a lot of these operating requests because we have one major unknown, and that is the innovation park. So the previous council borrowed a significant amount of money to purchase some land to kickstart the innovation park. We are, as we hear, very close to getting that over the line and receiving some significant investment in our community and support from the provincial government. But until we get that announcement, I can't, in good conscience, pass a budget or even think it's worth going through line by line in these items until we know whether that innovation park is occurring or not. I personally believe that the province will come forward like they've indicated and support the innovation park and what we need from them to move forward. But I think that is more likely to occur, prior to the upcoming election in May. And so I would like to defer the discussion around all of these items until then, when we know more about what we have in front of us. The reason why I'm putting this motion forward is when I went through and looked at all these items, I want to approve all of them. I think they're all needed for what we've asked for, right? They fit our strategic plan. And my worry is because we've got that one large piece that is going to completely reshape the community that's not announced yet. I don't know if we have, well, I don't think we have the political capital to go ahead and approve a 7.4% increase, or even if we scale that back without that innovation park announcement coming out, so that we can explain to the community how we think we can fund some of these programs. So, and positions. So for me, my worry is if we sit up here and go through this, I think a lot of these things, which I would like to support and quite frankly would support if the innovation park was announced and we were able to show that link to the community, showing that significant investment that's coming in, and part of that investment is going to help pay for some of these programs down the road. I want to be able to say yes to that. And if that innovation park was announced and we could make that connection today, then I would be more than happy to go through these and you know, I would say yes to them all. But we're not in that position. And I don't want to put this council, I don't want to throw out all the good work that's been put in here because we haven't had that announcement yet. I truly believe that if this provincial government doesn't make the announcement before the election, then it's just not going to happen. And if that's not going to happen, that's fine. We just need to completely rework our strategy on what we're going to do with that land. And I would hate to commit $1.7 million of operating expenses, assuming that the innovation park is going to occur if it doesn't. So I would much rather hold that and pass this ask administration to come back with an interim budget. There are things in here that have to be done, like the transit, et cetera, and administration would, you know, think through that and how they're going to pay for that. There's obviously growth here of $810,000. And so I would ask, the motion here is to ask administration to come back on December 13th and provide an interim budget, which is basically a 0% increase up until we get you know, the announcement, hopefully the announcement coming up prior to the election. Now, I recognize that there is a need for administration to send out tax notices, et cetera. I think it's by the end of April. And so I think I've got some questions for administration here on that, but I just wanted to really reinforce that, you know, my motion here is not a reflection of the budget itself. I think the budget is excellent. I would love to say yes to them all. I just don't think we can at this point approve this without the innovation park moving ahead. So I would like us to quote unquote buy some time to keep the lights on for the first quarter of the year. See if we can get that announcement, and if that comes, great. Then we can go through and look at these things and hopefully approve a lot of these items. And if not, then we need to be able to use that money to completely reinvent the strategy. So I'll leave it there. I recognize this is a big shift, but basically what I'm asking here is we just skip all discussion on operation on the operating budget and move in and ask administration to come back and provide that interim one, and we just dive straight into capital. So defer all operating asks for the first 3 or 4 months of the year. I recognize the impact that's going to make on the departments and not what they want to hear, but I want to see where we land on that innovation park. The last thing I'll say, just publicly here, administration, yourself, Mr. Mayor, I know you guys have done absolutely everything you can to get that innovation park over the line. We're extremely close from what you're saying. There's nothing more that we can do, and I know administration is working hard to get that over the line. It's a political decision now, and so let's see if we can get that announcement. And in the interim, we'll pass a keep the lights on operating budget. So I'll leave it there and happy to answer questions, or also invite administration to weigh in if there are any major red flags on that. So I'll defer to you, Mr. Mayor, on how you want to kind of go about this process. But I would appreciate some time for Mr. Dowler or Mr. DeBlanco to jump in and explain if this is a completely terrible idea. So I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Okay, I see my screen is lighting up here, so I will decide how we're going to proceed on this. Thank you for the motion, Councillor McGough-Swain. So I will entertain questions from council to Councillor McGough-Swain on his motion. And I will, once the questions are all done, I'll then refer to administration, Mr. Donald, Mr. DeBlanco, to perhaps as best you can on short notice, give us some advice as to how you see potentially advantages of the motion in front of us and potential downfalls of the motion in front of us. So I'll begin with council first. Councillor Miller, Councillor Tessier, Councillor McCook. Would you mind taking the motion off the screen so I can see Councillor Barnhart in case she has a question, has her hand raised? I can't see her right now. And oh yeah, Kathy, your hand's already up. I thought it might be. So you know what, Councillor Barnhart, let's start with you, and then I'll go to Councillor Miller, Councillor Tessier, Councillor McCook, Councillor Newkirk, and I've got a question or two of my own. And then we'll get the administration to offer some observations on the motion. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I was really wanting to hear from some of the others first, but let me put one question out there and maybe you'll do a second round if that comes to that. But I think the first question that I would like, again, administration, you've already asked them if they would give the pros and cons to it. And that's who I'd like to ask the question of, because I appreciate totally where Councillor McGough-Swain is coming from. The question really is what is going to change in the very first quarter that's going to make a significant enough difference that we would then feel comfortable improving. I mean, part of me really does think that having that is a bit of a political issue for us to be able to say to the residents of Beaumont that yes, we have in fact been able to make this deal come to fruition. But I don't think from a financial standpoint in the next year that we're going to see the benefit of that it's going to change our budget situation. But I do want to hear from the administration. I could be wrong on that. So I'll just put that out there. And if others want to ask their questions first and we'll get to the administration, that's just fine.
Thank you, Councillor. I just made a decision on the fly that I'll go to council first for administration. So I'll stick to that decision if you don't mind. So let's move to Councillor Miller, Councillor Tessier, Councillor Cook, Councilman Newkirk. Ashley, you have the floor. Then we'll come back and circle back to administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting point by Councillor Barnhart. I'll go back to Councillor McGough-Swain's motion. A couple of things. So just for clarity, you are suggesting the interim budget be a 0% for the operating. I'm just wondering if that, before you respond, if that should be included in the motion or if we should just keep it as is.
Yeah, I think administration can speak to what they intend for an interim budget, but essentially it's, my understanding is it's carrying on what was done from last year. And so that would effectively be 0, but would leave it to them to determine what that looks like.
Okay. I will leave it to them for that as well. I appreciate you bringing this motion forward. As a counselor, I feel we could take the time and go through line by line all of these items, which I think, you know, I'm in agreement. I would very much like to see as well. But I don't want to, I don't feel comfortable going there either unless I know more about this. Since I've been elected, I have been having these wonderful conversations and these, you know, these the same situation we kind of heard tonight, which is hard work done by all. But I'm in agreement with this motion. I like that you brought it forward, and I would like to hear how it will impact the interim budget, or leading on to Kathy or Councillor Barnhart's suggestion or comment there. What is the long-term effect beyond just Q1? So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor.
Having said that, Councillor Miller, thank you very much. I got a note from administration. Perhaps CEO Schwartz is suggesting we should have administration maybe offer some opinions, help us guide the discussion. I was hoping not to influence anyway, but having said that, you'll get out eventually the opinions from administration on the pros and cons on the motion. So Mr. Dollar, are you able to maybe offer some observations pro and against this motion in terms of implications and so on? Thank you, Mr. Dollar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best here. I'll start off by saying administration, as you all know, are here to do whatever council chooses to decide, approve. And so whatever is the decision, will make it work. In terms of the motion that's on the floor, I can definitely understand the intent behind the motion from Councillor Monkoff-Swain in terms of the political risk, so to speak, that's on the table here for all of council. And at a very high level, the kind of the gymnastics of making that motion work, should it be approved, is certainly doable within the administration's world. What it would mean, I think in some cases, assuming that everything as presented by administration would be eventually approved by council, and I know that's a big assumption, it would mean delaying some of those things. And so, I think we would need a little bit more time to really determine what any significant impacts of those delays would be, but I don't necessarily see them being insurmountable on what's, again, been presented to council. As it relates to just kind of the process of doing it, Councillor Monkoff-Swain essentially alluded to it. It would be technically approving a 0% increase. What you're essentially approving in that case would be the exact same budget as 2022, and we continue to do the service and provide the same service that we currently are within that framework. The conversation on the 2023 budget just gets delayed. And so for me, off the top, the risk that council is incurring with this is delaying those conversations until, I think, again, we'd have to work through the timing of it. It would have to happen prior to April so that we would have everything in place to be able to actually approve a tax rate bylaw by the end of April, as Councillor Monkoff-Swain mentioned. So that means you're looking at budget deliberations potentially in March, which, again, understanding the intent of the motion would mean that we would have to have an announcement by the province in order for circumstances to change by sometime March at the latest. And so that is a bit of the risk. If we believe that that's, doable, then the risk would be minimal. If we believe it's going to extend beyond March, then I think you're looking at, doing a budget conversation in the next 3 days versus in March. It's kind of that trade-off for you. The other piece that would be a little bit more problematic, I would say, for administration, but not, again, insurmountable, is circumstances will have changed by March. And so it would be incumbent on us to just do a high-level review of some of the numbers, assumptions that are built into this budget and bring forward any kind of changes or potential impacts that maybe weren't considered or were considered to a different magnitude within this proposed budget. So that would be the other piece of work that would be required on our part. I'm not sure what that would look like. My hope would be it wouldn't be very much, but again, it's kind of doing that due diligence before we brought it back to council for consideration and deliberations. So I think that's a few things I covered off, and certainly if there's any more direct questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. Okay, speak to it first, and then I've got a question for you before I go to the rest of council. Oh, sorry. Your mic is on now.
Thank you for the overall summary. I would agree 100% that this is delaying. What I'm trying to achieve here is to make sure that we don't cancel these projects outright. Reading the tea leaves from my conversations with council here today, but throughout the last little while going through this budget, there are things in here that council wants to do, but we simply can't. And so I fear if we go through this conversation over the next day and a half, things that we really need, these service enhancements, as an example, 3.9%, I fear that we're going to say no to those because we don't have the political, and to Kathy's point, it is absolutely a political decision. I'll speak for myself. I can't go forward here and approve a 3.9% service enhancement. I think that is a nice to have without delivering on the big ticket item that I've spoken about publicly. So it's absolutely about delaying. Yes, we push this conversation till March. And if the announcement doesn't come in March, then we have this exact same conversation. And maybe, at that point, we lose some of these things off the list. But I fear, again, reading the tea leaves, that if we defeat this motion and move forward on this, that these things are going to be lost for the whole year. So I want to move forward with everything that's in this budget. And I think this is the best way politically for the 7 of us. So politically for myself, but understanding where the other 6 stand here, I think this motion gives us the best chance to succeed and move these things forward. So I'll leave it there, but I really appreciate the fact that, as to your point, you'll do what we ask. And I hope that doesn't sound too direct and crass, but the flexibility to be able to do that. It's not an unsurmountable ask. And it gives us time to be able to be in a position to approve these things that I would like to. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question before I go. I usually go to council first, but this time I'm going to take privilege and just ask the question myself. First of all, thank you, Mr. Della, for the observations there and going back. So Sam, I understand what you're saying, but let me ask you a question. Even if the throne speech you mentioned yesterday had mentioned our innovation park and the approval contained therein, we'd be starting construction 2 or 3 months down the road. Completion would be 2 years after that. We'd be seeing tax revenue from the innovation park down the road. So you're asking us to delay the entire operating budget. You mentioned down at the bottom the 3.9%. I know where you're going with that, and I appreciate your perspective. But the top part of the page, we're looking at an increase of 2.8% in property tax to maintain existing services our residents are already getting. No enhancements, but no reductions. No job losses. We're giving our staff in this 2.8% an increase of 3% on the COLA. Our staff took 2% this year and now 3% in the coming year. I think we can all agree they've done more than their share in terms of contributing to our tax increases being minimal the last few years. So personally, I don't think the revenue we won't be getting for a couple of years impacts the fact that we need to do status quo, at least on our base services. Now, I'm not quite with you yet on the balance of the bottom of the page, but at the very minimum, I see no point in delaying discussing maintaining services to our residents starting on January 1 at the increase of 2.8%, which is barely well below inflation right now. So explain to me why you want to have the entire operating budget cut instead of maybe, you mentioned the 3.9. I get that, you've been concerned about that, but what about the 2.8 to run our existing services for our residents with no change in enhancements or reductions? Can you answer that, please? Or what's your perspective on that part of the budget page on page 9, please? Oh, sorry, I had to turn you off. There you go.
Yeah, I'll answer this in 2 ways. First, I absolutely recognize that an announcement, from the province coming out here, press conference, all that sort of stuff, that does nothing for revenue for us. I understand that tomorrow, like if that came tomorrow, there is no revenue there. It's going to take time I get that. So I'm not waiting for that announcement to all of a sudden get some revenue to be able to solve for the 7.4%. This is going back to that point. This is a political decision. To your point around 2.8 and whether folks should get COLA and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm there. The reason why I'm doing this is, and there's ways to go back and retroactively cover that, et cetera. And I'd like to do that in March when we have this conversation again. It fundamentally comes down to, there are 6 or 7 things, 8 things in this budget here that I think are gonna fail, that council is gonna vote down because of where we are right now. And so I would like them to pass. I can't vote for them now because the residents haven't seen the outcome of that innovation park. So by giving it a 3 or 4 month delay, gives them those things a chance to pass. So to your point, staff, COLA, yes, agree, absolutely. We can do that in March. And if nothing happens from now until March, all it's done is delayed these projects for a little bit. A lot of things can come back retroactively. And if some of the projects move down and they bleed into 2024, then, that's personally the risk I'm willing to take, and I'm asking you to take in order to be able to save these things, to make sure that we deliver on what this budget is asking us to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I get that. I guess let's continue on though. I know you agree with COLA. I didn't assume you didn't agree with it, because I know our staff's done more than their fair share on budgets the last few years. And we all recognize that. I guess my point is, I'm not at Service Enhancement yet. I'm not sure I'm there myself in that sense. I get it. We have to have that discussion later this evening, but I don't think there's no more revenue coming in 2023 if Innovation Park gets announced right away. There's no revenue coming in to offset this money here.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how delaying will give us any more revenue to pay for these programs. If they were approved.
No, for sure.
Right?
And to be crystal clear, and obviously I'm not, that this is not about finding revenue to offset 7.4%.
Right.
I personally am okay if we announce the Innovation Park. I'm okay passing a budget that is in and around 7.4%, because then we can show the residents the amount of revenue that is going to come in over time. Today, we can't even tell them who's coming in, right? So the residents, from my perspective, we need to have that ability. So it's not about trying to get new money in to drop that 7.4% down. That's not what I'm asking. I personally don't believe that we can approve this 7.4% budget increase and say to residents, just trust us. This is going to happen. So ultimately, if you want to go line by line by line, the risk that you're taking is that you're going to lose service enhancements. You're going to lose community grants for the arts. You're going to lose library operating budget increase, because people are going to vote against it to shrink that 7.4% down. And you can do that, and you can vote against that motion. What I'm asking, I want to be able to approve those things. If we vote down the service enhancements because 3.9% isn't palatable for us right now, then that goes, and all the good work that's gone into that. And again, me reading the tea leaves, I don't think there is 4 votes for service enhancement. I may be wrong. But this is my way of trying to keep service enhancement and those other things in the budget, so we're not throwing that out. So this allows us to have that conversation. But I mean, ultimately, that's what the motion's about, right? If there aren't 3 other people who agree with me, then we'll go line by line, and I'm good with that. I'm just saying that risks a lot of these dropping off the map.
Okay, I have a follow-up. I'm going to move on to Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, followed by Councillor Barnhart. So Renee, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the conversation and the motion. For sure, an interesting motion, and I'll just kind of give my opinion above some questions. But for me, 7.4% is high. I was uncomfortable with even seeing that where I was at, and a lot of the asks didn't really align with my perspective on what we need in the city. I'm pretty open about knowing that we need 24-hour police service, more firefighters, and more service enhancements when it comes to snow plows, things like that, operators. I didn't see much of that in this budget. So for me, I was at 2.8 and maybe getting something else. So I'm okay with delaying it, because if we can have admin or counselors maybe explain why they need it a little bit more, I might be there, but I'm for sure not saying if we had the Innovation Park, that I'd be still okay with 7.4% unless we had that tax revenue coming in. So either way, it's still 7.4% to everyone that lives here. So I think, the Innovation Park was a gamble. It's been 3 or 4 years, right? And we're paying a lot of interest per year. At some point, we're going to have to make a decision. If it happens, these conversations are going to be a lot easier to have, because we know the income's going to be coming at some point, and we're going to need these positions. If it doesn't come, Beaumont's going to have to change strategies and figure out where we want to go and what we want to do, because that income from the business sector is not going to be there. So I'll leave it at that and kind of see where the room goes. And I got a couple more questions for round two. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor, followed by Steve, followed by Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate this motion being brought forward. I recognize this is a difficult decision, and there are some councillors who are very uncomfortable with the 7.4. I definitely understand all the asks and why they've come forward. A lot of them are, you know, what we've talked about in council, especially around service enhancements and stuff like that when it comes to our residents interacting with the city and getting things done and having access to everyone. So we've talked about that. We've talked about upgrading our financial systems and the challenges that our residents have encountered with that. So all these things are important to Councillor Munkoff-Swain's point. And I think because we've experienced significant growth, whether Innovation Park occurs or not, these are things that will eventually need to happen at some point. We just can't keep growing at the rate that we're growing and not upgrading our systems and being able to serve our residents in the best way possible. So while some of these things aren't necessarily what people might want or expect right away, they will impact their day-to-day experience in the city. I think as far as the tax goes, you're right. We won't see the tax immediately if Innovation Park gets approved tomorrow or announced tomorrow by the province. But I think at least if we have that assurance from the province and we know that it's moving forward, we know that it's coming. So then it will eventually alleviate the burden on our residents. And so, so I understand from Councillor Munkoff-Swain's point to pushing that to be able to say, look, this is here, this is coming. Now let's have these harder discussions, because as we've heard tonight already, when it comes to protective services and stuff, we have even more difficult discussions coming as to how we're going to boost all of those services. So with that being said, I am in favor of this. I would like to hear from administration a little bit though, to the mayor's point as well. What is the impact on the maintaining services part and, you know, pushing that a few months? And are we not able to potentially still have that piece just because that basically deals with inflation and just really dealing with status quo? So
Thanks, Kat. You read my mind on that part from the logistical part of it. So Mr. Dollar and Mr. DeBlanco, could you comment that the 2.8% on page 9 talks about annual increase to maintain services right from January 1 to December 31st. So from perspective, if this motion were to pass and delay us, let's just say to the beginning of the second quarter, how does that impact services in the first quarter? And would that impact then be more than 2.8 when the vote happens in March? Would it have to be? If you could explain that, if you could, please, Mr. Dowler. Thank you. Your mic's on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think to answer the question, you know, it's a bit of a balance for administration. We would be looking at those maintaining services and absolutely, again, providing services that are currently being provided in the city. So continuing to do that in the manner that we need to. So when I think about an interim budget, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are not going to deal with some of those inflationary pressures. It's just a set amount of money that we can still move forward with, still do the things that we need to do, and pay for those additional utility charges, whatever it is. So that, from that perspective, it's pretty straightforward and low risk. Where I would suggest administration would be a little bit more delayed because there is a little bit greater risk, would be obviously starting some of the projects that are there. So I know that's beyond the maintained services piece, but it would be something like cost of living adjustment. So I wouldn't, as an administrator, be in favor of allocating those dollars to staff January 1, as we typically would do if it got approved. That would be something that would need to be delayed and wait until there's an approved budget from council for 2023. So it's a bit of a balance, I guess. Frontline services, day-to-day operations, you're not going to see it impact the services that we deliver to citizens. We will continue to do that to the standards that council has set. Some of the other things that are there, though, it's going to be a little bit delayed.
And as far as COLA, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Deller. As far as COLA and stuff, we can retroactively deal with that if this goes forward in March or whenever we decide.
Oh, your mic's back on, Mr. Deller.
Sorry, I keep on turning it off.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be retroactive to January, assuming again that that's the decision council makes. But again, if you're looking at the personnel package as its entirety, we'd still have to pay the increase to the benefit costs as an example. So that would be something that we couldn't delay. But yeah, and specifically as it relates to COLA, it would be retroactive, assuming again, council makes that decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me, Mayor. I just think there is a significant amount of work that's gone into this budget, and I want to be able to give it the best shot possible as well, because I do see the value in a lot of what has been put forward. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat. Appreciate that. Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilor Barnhart. Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I'll try not to repeat a whole bunch that has been said, but I'll start by saying that I think this is the best put together budget that I've seen since I've been on council. So thank you very much for that. Everything is set up well, and it's organized in a planned and organized fashion. And I don't think that these items would get approved in their entirety if we move this operational conversation forward right now. I want to approve the items in this budget. And in fact, I want to add things to it as well. You know, there's reasons that I asked for a CVO volunteer coordinator, and there's reasons that I asked the questions that I did in the 30 some questions that I asked, right? Because I would like to actually add things, and I'd like to have some debates with Tess about horse trading on positions and items and challenge each other and have fun doing that, right? But just here tonight, I can't do that. Right now, in order to bring the 7.4% down, if we continued with the conversation, I think council will be attempting to break apart these well-planned items into pieces in an attempt to bring that 7.4% down. And like I said, I think that takes away from the connection and the alignment that is presented in this budget. It's very thought out, so such that you complete this piece so that we can do this next and then we can do this after that. And if council starts cherry picking the pieces out of those, it's going to be a mess for administration. And I think that's what's going to happen if we proceed with a 7.4. It's so well put together. It's almost to its detriment in not given the easy wins to council to be able to pull a few things out to drop it down to 7.4. I know that, presenting a budget to council isn't about easy wins either. So, just I'm not lost on that. The way that the motion is put forward right now by Councillor Monkoff-Swain, it's pretty clear and concise at that 0%. And there, and there's an interim budget and there's a timeline. And Mr. Dollar has alluded to, the impacts of the conversation in March and, what we need to do by the end of April or within April to make sure that we meet the tax levy and all those things. And administration can think through all of those pieces. But I think if we start adding and removing items from this motion, I think we're going to lose that clarity. And I just want to point that out to council as well, because, the first place my head went was, well, if we did 2.8 and we had 8-10 growth and we did this and we did that, it wouldn't be so bad, right? But then we're starting to pick and choose. And I think this motion loses the clarity that is intended or that I heard Councillor Monkoff-Swain speak about. So, and the last point that I kind of got here in my quickly scratched notes is that, I completely understand the impacts to timelines that have been spoken about. And should this motion pass, would look forward to the interim budget that admin would bring back to council. So, that's kind of where my head is at. And you guys don't know how hard it was to refrain and speak last. Like I was, I always like to get in there and get chatting about things. But this one, I thought it was very important to hear from others and see where folks were at. So that's the summation of my thoughts right now. So I would support the motion the way it's written for clarity, and would look forward to administration bringing back that interim budget in the timeline that's allotted here. And it'll take some time to figure out what that means. To Mr. Dollar's point, there's a few things that are, we'll have to do this, this, and this, but you'll have to sit down in a room and think about how some of the other pieces fall together and what is the impact on this project and that project. And, I completely expect administration to bring back, the comments around potential project risks or the comments around potential, staffing in the city of Beaumont, right? Like there are risks associated with all that, and I'm aware of them. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, thank you for being patient. You have the floor, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you all. This is a tough one because I honestly think that it is not the right decision to delay the entire process until we have more clarity. I don't think I've ever, in my time, which of course isn't a long time, I don't think I've ever seen us tie our budget process to the province making an announcement or not. And I really don't think that's the right way to go. Mayor, you said some things about dealing with the growth pressures, dealing with inflation, moving ahead on some of the things that we really need to move ahead on. That's really where my head is at. And whether it's the 2.8 or whatever that number might be, where I started to choke was on the service enhancements. And I appreciate, yes, everybody has said it. These would be great things to have. I'm just not sure we can go there totally at this point in time. But to that point, why not put that part off until the spring? We've done that many times before in looking at what we called the spring budget at one point. Deal with the pressures now. I hate the thought of our staff having to wait 3 months for what? If we have the money from our growth to give the staff the COLA that they deserve and to hire the staff to maintain the service levels, I don't want to push that off. So while I appreciate where it's coming from, Councillor Monkoff-Swain, it's really brave of you, and I appreciate it that you put this forward. I can't vote in favor of it for those reasons, and I can see I'm probably on the losing side of that vote, but I really do believe that we need to proceed with looking at the detail here in terms of the service levels and the inflationary increases, the growth, but not the service enhancements until we have further clarity on our other innovative ideas. So perhaps what I'm suggesting as a compromise is that rather than delaying the operating budget discussion in total, that we would have the discussion that gets us to the point of the service enhancements and postpone that discussion until the spring. That's where I'm at, Mayor, and I appreciate all that everyone has said. I don't disagree. I think 7.4% is high, too high for this time and place. I came in myself in terms of around the 5 or the 4.5, but I also think it's the wrong decision to postpone a budget process because we're waiting for a provincial announcement. That to me makes no sense. That's clearly, and I appreciate it, it's clearly political and a communication exercise, but I think our job is to approve the budget and get it done. So I will not be supporting the motion as it's currently written, but I appreciate where it's coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Monkoff-Swain, you have your button on. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, mine were just kind of more closing comments. So if there are others who had questions, happy. It doesn't look like there are. So if you're good for me to
I'll do
close it.
closing after. I have no questions for us.
Yeah. So, Councillor Barnhart, I would absolutely agree. Tying a budget to a provincial decision is a terrible idea. I'm with you. What I think's a more terrible idea, if that's an appropriate grammar, which it clearly isn't because people are snickering over here. If it's a worse idea, what is a worse idea is voting things down today or over the next couple of days because we don't have that. So I'm with you. I don't want to wait for a provincial announcement, but to my earlier point, if we don't have that, we're going to lose things on this list. And just from my collection of thoughts from the rest of council here on where people stand and what people have said tonight, I think we're going to lose things. So I don't want to change the motion. To Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's point, I went for clarity and not to try to mix and match things. And I appreciate not everyone's going to vote for it. I hope there's 4 votes. If not, I'm happy to go through these things and I'll find myself being on the wrong side of a lot of votes here. And we'll lose a lot of these projects that I think we need. So yeah, appreciate your comments, Councillor Barnhart, and the explanation as to why you vote against this. I'm with you. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I call the vote, just one last comment for myself. I do appreciate the intent of the motion. I do agree with Councillor Barnhart. I have difficulty supporting the motion in the bigger picture because it's all or nothing proposition. I understand where you're coming from, but I would caution some council members. You have sort of gone on record saying, you know, if Innovation Park gets approved, you're happy to approve them 7.4. That's a bit of a commitment you made for the future. So we can answer that in the future. I'm not sure I'm at 7.4 myself either, but I'm going through the process to get there, not get there. So I see your buttons on, Sam. You want to say something quickly before I wrap up and call for the vote? I'll give you some latitude here quickly. Thank you.
So this is not an all or nothing thing. This is delaying it 4 months, right? So don't put words in my mouth. This is not completely throwing out the operating budget, which has been framed as here. This is giving us a chance to get some clarity on where we're going with the innovation park. And then we'll go through and do this, right? And to your point, 7.4, these are things that I'd like to see in here, but this is not throwing out the operating budget. It's pushing it, giving us a chance. And so the province has indicated that they're supportive of this. Administration's indicated that the province is supportive of this. Let's give them a chance, and then we can go through and truly look at this with a better lens than where we are today. So I want to give us the best chance. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, appreciate that. So having said that, I've said my comments, and at this point, I'll ask council to vote on the motion. Could you have the motion put in front of us one more time, please, on the screen when I call for the vote in a moment here? Thank you. Council, would you please vote on the motion before you? Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
I am opposed, Your Worship.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-2. Thank you, council, for the debate. It was healthy, invigorating, much appreciated. And as I speak for council going forward, I will 100% support the position taken by council this evening on the operating budget, and we will go forward on that note accordingly. So having said that, the operating budget has been delayed to a later time. Next on our agenda would normally be the capital budget discussion. It's 10-8. I'm wondering, administration, should we begin the capital budget process discussion, or we want to adjourn to tomorrow evening, come back fresh and tackle capital and utility tomorrow and wrap up things, I'm assuming probably tomorrow night. I can't just go into a third day with just having capital and utility left. How does council feel about that? Do you want to continue on, or you want to take a break and to come back fresh tomorrow evening? I'm not seeing, I don't mind, some opinions would be helpful here, some feedback. Administration, how do you, Mr. Dollar, suggestion from yourself on that?
Sure, I'll chime in and speak for all of administration. I think we're all here tonight. We're all prepared to be here till 9. So I would suggest, and I personally would trade off tonight versus Friday night. So I would welcome continuing on with capital.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads, so I'll ask the question. Well, I thought I had a bit of a break in the action here. So council doesn't object. We will continue on this evening until 9 o'clock. Next on our agenda is the capital budget discussion. So council, please join me on your budget package, which begins for capital budget on page, hang on a second, page 88. So I would like to begin as we have previously. We have the funded section at the top. Sorry, we have the funded on page 88 with renewal category, growth category, utility, offsite levy, and so on down the line. So I'd like to begin by having us discuss, if we need to discuss or make any changes to the renewal portion of the capital budget. And you'll see there in the column a total of $4,538,000 in the 2023 budget for renewal items laid out as fleet, equipment, parks, playground, facility renewal program, transportation renewal program, technology replacement. So council, have you said that? Or we have any concerns, questions, comments, motions on the renewal section of the capital budget on page 88? I know we had a number of questions were asked in our question package on this, so those questions were all answered, I believe. So seeing no comments, Kathy, you're good?
Yes, Mayor, I think my questions are under the growth section.
Yes, that's gonna be next right away. So seeing no questions from council. Oh, sorry, Steve. I just saw you on, and sorry, Sam, I didn't see any moment ago. So Steve, you have the floor, followed by Sam.
Okay, I thought Sam was first, but that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Just a question around the playground renewal. There was questions submitted by council around, you know, what playgrounds are being renewed and why, and there was an explanation around that, and that's available for review. But just for the benefit of this discussion, would administration be able to give just a very quick description of why there's only one playground being proposed as being renewed on here for the benefit of those watching at home? Thank you. So it's a hot button item in our community. The mayor has the stats of how many % are under 15, and
Get that memorized.
he's got it all memorized. So it has been something that has been asked of me more often than not with the playgrounds. So thank you.
Can you, Mr. Lewicki, would you care to respond, please? You're on.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. So the question that we answered was that we did do a playground condition assessment in 2022, and the playground condition assessment identified Juneau Playground as the top playground for renewal. Basically, to maximize investment in existing infrastructure, we wanted to do one playground in 2023 and then one every year beyond that until 2027.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And, you know, you're rereading the answer to the question, which is completely fine, because, you know, that's what I wanted people to understand, is that there's a plan for more, and the risk level and the reasons that the inspections got to the way they did. This one's in the worst shape, it goes first. So, but, you know, that's all I wanted to bring forward, Mayor, because there's a lot of conversation around playgrounds in Beaumont, and everyone misses this and misses that. And then the school playgrounds need renewal, and then, you know, what the school boards are going to do versus what the city's going to do. And everybody's going to be comparing that in the coming months as well. So I wholly expect that playgrounds is going to be quite a topic in this room in the coming months. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Good point. It is a very popular topic in Beaumont, all the kids we have, so that's for sure. Councillor Tessier, Renee, you have the floor now with your question.
Thank you. I have a motion to add for the renewal section here.
Okay. Has it been presented or it's been formatted already? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, please proceed.
I'll move that the spray park renewal project be increased to in the 2023 capital budget by $25,000 to address additional enhancements and upgrades. I'll just speak to that a bit. As we know, a couple of weeks ago, when we got the overview, we canceled that 25 grand to the one part of the spray park. So I just want to take that 25 from the reserves and put it back into the renewal, so that we can get a little bit more upgrades. And there looks like there needs to be a decent amount of work there on the actual floor of it and the units. And I know we're not really looking at a recirculation system anymore due to the maintenance and maybe getting another location of a different spray park. So I think this could top that up a bit, and we were going to use that anyway for this exact same thing. So I'll open it up to questions there, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just trying to find my notes here on the spray park. Mr. Suter, would you be willing to speak to that question, or sorry, not speak the question, but Mr. Lewicki on the request on the motion? We'll discuss the motion in a moment here. I can get your mic on there. There we go.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier. My comments on the motion, obviously, more money gets us more effort. Obviously, the plan that we put in was focused on changing certain fixtures in the spray park. Obviously, we haven't, because the project hasn't been approved, we haven't got that nailed down yet. But it does give some flexibility with renewal of the assets.
Thank you. Renee, go ahead.
Yeah, and I can speak to that a bit exactly, like getting a little bit more for our bang when we're already there. Instead of $110,000, we'd be at $135,000. And I don't know about everyone here, but in the summer, I get pictures all the time of those old sheds and how dangerous it is. And we got people in there that they can hide from the public, and they were there for a reason when it was built 20 years ago, but things have evolved. So it does need some major overhaul. And when we're there, we might as well just add some additional funds to it to see if we can get even more enhancements.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, I guess my question would be, is there a certain expectation of what? Because I mean, 25,000 will add some flexibility to the budget for that project. I don't want to suggest that that's a larger renewal than, and 25,000 doesn't go that far to start replacing change rooms and washrooms and things like that. It may help a feature. It may help with some refinishing of the flooring, as you mentioned. I can't say at this point what that would do, but obviously that amount would go into further assessing the budget and trying to figure out what we could get for that extra dollar.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm not expecting the washrooms or anything. Really, my goal would be that surface and like the exterior buildings be taken care of and renovated so that they're safer and more family friendly. Along with, if you have a bunch of water guns, maybe you can get one more, right? That type of stuff. Or if it's, how there's different levels of, you get this kind of spray park at 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, that type of thing. So good point. But yeah, I'm not expecting the whole spray park to change for 25 grand. Like I want it to, but it's not going to happen.
So Councillor Tessier, it's probably fair to say an extra 25,000 to spend as best they possibly can to further enhance the renewal.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thanks, Councillor Tessier. I like this motion. I'm just wondering if it's worth, we can approve the money, but it's not really, up to us to say, spend it here, A, B, C, and D, right? Is it worth adding something in here to say, or to show maybe some proposed options on what would be included in the enhancement, or are you comfortable with this?
Councillor Tessier.
I'm open if there's something specific you want. I haven't really seen the plan or what it costs, so I was just gonna add it to the budget and hopefully we see it get a little bit more than we would right now, type of thing. So
yeah, I would direct this more to admin to say, with this extra $25,000, what kind of options could you propose? That's what I would do.
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller. Hard to say at this point with, I know that the budget that we did propose for the park was basically focused on like the water table and some other water features, more so than the rest of the park. Now, there's also an opportunity there to look at some of the mechanical portions of the park that may need fixing, that maybe aren't as shiny as some of the spray feature things, but there may be a need to upgrade some of that stuff in order to facilitate upgrade of some of these water features as well. So we have to be careful about what I say we can do and can't do with that. So again, we could take that back and look at what we can do with that. But again, 25,000 is a buffer that allows us a little bit more flexibility, but it's not gonna be a huge shift in what we can do with the park.
Yeah, if you want to keep your motion the same, I'm good with it. I was just you know, it'd be nice to see, okay, what are the proposed additions going to be or enhancements, but.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. In the original 110, were any of the structures or sheds, those blue ones with the big blue metal sides, were those being touched or not? Because then we could adjust it to specifically do those type of sheds and maybe more picnic tables or whatever.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, my understanding is that the scope of what was costed was more to do with the water features and the quality of the play that the children would have, as opposed to focusing on the structures themselves. So I don't believe that we were looking to update any of those features.
So then we could, if you want, we could put 25 grand towards the structures, because that's one of the main concerns of the emails as well, and obviously the pavement, but I'm sure Chief Melvin can attest to the calls of things going on in there. So
I am actually not comfortable with stating where it should go. I was just kind of looking to admin for, you know, where would you put it given the extra 25,000? I'm not quite sure we know where it would go, but it would probably be used accordingly. That's what I was more looking for. What would we do if we had 25,000 extra? I don't want to pick and choose where it should go, because I'm not that person. I don't know.
Administration should make that decision, yeah.
Yeah.
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller, we would review what needs to be done at the park and prioritize what efforts need to be repaired. I know there's some water features that don't work as they should, or aren't providing the quality of play that we would like them to. But in addition to that, we would look at all aspects of the park and within that budget, try to accommodate the pieces that need to be
Right.
Fixed or renewed.
Okay. Okay. I'll leave it at that. I think Councillor Barnhart has her hand up.
Yes, she does. Thank you. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Miller, and also Mayor, for noticing. I had it up and I had it down and I had it up and I had it down. I think Councillor Miller eventually said what I was kind of going to say myself, is that this is something that I believe the administration is best capable of deciding what needs to happen there. I don't know whether it's an extra 25,000, extra 50,000 or 10,000 or less, because the money is coming out of reserves. I think this is basically the best estimate until they actually have the project underway. So I'm okay with looking at it, but I feel a little awkward approving an amount when I don't know what it's for. And it's not that I'm opposed to the idea, Councillor Tessier. I'm in favor of making that spray park as viable and as fun for the kids as we can make it, but I don't know what amount of money that should be. So I'm having a hard time approving that unless the administration has made an estimate as to what they're going to do with it. So that's where I'm really on the fence on this one. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I also don't know that it's our job to be picking that amount when we don't know what it's going to be put for.
So Tessie, a quick comment.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Barnhart, for that question. But 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when we were presented with one of the budgets, they took away the spray park additions for 25 grand. So all I'm doing is taking it from the spray park that was canceled and taking 25 grand and putting it back into the spray park, as we canceled 3 things that night that led to $256,000 of revenue. One was that the asphalt patches and the hook truck and light duty truck of 145, and then the spray park recirculation system for 25 grand. So it was just literally taking it out from a spot that was canceled and plugging it back into the same spray park.
Sorry, Mayor, but could I just respond? Councillor Tessier, though, the 25,000, did you just not say that, sorry, I've kind of forgot we did have that conversation, but did you not say that was for the replacement of the water, the changing that, and now you're suggesting it be for something less concrete than that? I'm not expressing that very well. Sorry, it's 4 o'clock in the morning here and my brain is going a little fuzzy, but I'm just not sure what the 25,000 is for.
The 25 grand was for the recirculation system, but when we got presented that report, from what I remember, it was the opinion that the spray park recirculation systems do not work that well, and there's a ton of maintenance and a ton of issues with them, and it'll be down, if not more than it would be right now. So it'd be best to spend the money on enhancing the spray park instead of adding an additional recirc system. And then we looked at maybe getting a new location. So that's where that kind of cash ended up.
Okay, as I mentioned, it's coming out of reserves at this point, so I'm not opposed to the idea. I just don't think it's as specific as I would like to see it. But thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman Newkirk, Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going back into the questions that were asked around this, and you know, the 110, it says the 110 would support an established standard of care for the existing assets, basically make everything there that's work. You know, between 2 and 4 features would be replaced, a new splash water table and more interactive overhead and ground level features, right? So, you know, the things I've most often heard about actually aren't those things. The things I've more often heard about is take the sides off the shed so kids can't, you know, hide in there and do bad stuff. The flooring with the paint peeling, right? But you know, there's no use putting paint on that. That needs to be tore out and replaced. But then what does that lead to? Because what's beneath there, I don't know, right? So while I 100% understand the intent of trying to put some more funds to do some more in there, without understanding what that more could lead to, it would be easier for me to get to a yes here if it was like 35,000 to do this, right? And we know, but the spray park is a tough one for me, to be honest, because it is dated. It's not a recirc system, and in my opinion, it actually needs a rebuild. You know, that's where, you know, I'll tip my hand. That's where I think this needs to go, and maybe in a different place of the city. You know, I would be more comfortable with spending $25,000 on park benches and shade structures and all of those things that parents that go to parks don't have. You know, a very common thing that I hear about parents going to parks is there's no shade and there's not enough seating, right? So personally, I would be more comfortable pumping 25K into that initiative and having administration recommend some good places to put a structure or to come up with a template for a structure that we can replicate across the city in subsequent budgets and those types of things, rather than 25K to the spray park. So I don't think I would be there for this motion, not because I don't think the spray park needs it, just because I don't know that there's certainty there for me on what the extra 25 would bring to that site and that project. So, yeah.
I think those are great points, and I think a few other councillors have alluded to that. And I learned as well that those upgrades would not include structures or park benches. So I would like to amend the motion if possible to just address the shelters and shade, like whether that's covered park benches or whatever that may be. But from my understanding, I thought that renovation was going to include the groundwork and include making it safer for families. But I guess it's just the water system.
Mr. Lewicki?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, your mic's on now.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier and also to Councillor Van Newkirk. I wanted to kind of reiterate the point of what we're trying to achieve with this project, which would be, we understand, to Councillor Van Newkirk's point, that the water park is reaching end of life. The point of this project is to extend it long enough so that we could get a new park in service, because what we heard from council in previous meetings was that we don't want to have a disruption in water or spray park service. So the idea is if we could do a few things, granted, it's not perfect. I totally understand where you're coming from. But if we could do a few things to increase the play value at the park and extend its life somewhat, fixing certain things, then we can get this new park designed and online. Then we can come back and and decide what we're going to do with this park. Do we completely renew it? Do we move it? There'll be options there, right? So the intention behind this project was to just get us enough so that we could maintain the park and continue on so that we could get to that park.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I still think I'd like to amend it to just address the sheds and maybe some extra picnic tables or something, because it's just, there has been a lot of texting and messages and pictures where if we're gonna go there and do a reno and not touch it, I don't think that's gonna go over very well. Just personally, we'll see if there's 4 votes that think the same.
Thanks.
So, small amendment there.
Just let administration work on that for us here then. Councilor Miller, do you wish to speak to the motion before we get it final amended here? Or do you want to amend a motion first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think I'd take the full hour, but I'm willing to, so.
All right. Do you agree with what's on the screen, Councilor Tessier?
Yes, and I agree with others about the shade issue would be the one thing where the benches are put, because you find those little hills of humps and stuff, but if we could find them where they're shaded benches, that would be helpful. So yeah, that works. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Miller. Oh, your button's off now. Okay. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Any further comments? Councilor Barnhart, you're on. I can't see on my screen now. Are you any further comments? I'm assuming not.
No, I'm good, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Council. Well, on that, I'll ask you to actually, Councilor Tessier, will you please repeat your motion one more time, just for the record, as it's amended now, please? I just put your mic on and you turned it off.
That was my
Okay,
bad.
don't touch the button.
I'll move that the spray park renewal project be increased in the 2023 capital budget by $25,000 to address improvements to the sheds and benches. And yeah, no other comment. And I'm happy with the amended changes. So I'm happy we got to that place. Appreciate it.
You want to speak to the motion?
That's too late, Councillor Munkoff Swain.
Actually, no, he's still okay. He just made the motion. So we can now discuss the motion one last briefly time. Sam?
Thank you for your leadership, Mayor Denelick, in managing this council. So this is for the existing spray park, and without wanting to confuse everyone and look at the future growth, you've got spray park growth here in the 2023 to 2027 capital budget plan. You've got that as 10,000 in 2024, 30,000 in 2025 to kind of what I assume is just to kind of assess that. And then you've got the bigger injection there in 2026. My preference for this, if we're looking at this 25,000, would be to bring all that forward to next year and start to plan what the new spray park, where it's going to go, all that sort of stuff would look like. So like, I know what you're trying to do here, but I think there is more. I would rather find out what we're doing with the new spray park. The reason why I support the concept of the motion, but I would rather spend that money bringing forward spray park growth, the planned budget for 24 and 25. I think we need to know that soon. Now, there may be a reason why admin, well, I shouldn't say there may be, there obviously is a reason why admin put it here. And sorry for those following along, I'm on page 126 of the PDF or 123 of the document. 2023, 2027 capital plan. Near the bottom, spray park growth. The intention, I'm just curious here, is the intention for that, basically effectively $40,000 in 24 and 25? Is that because we don't know, we want a year to kind of wait? We've got other things and trying to figure out where that's going to go. I'm just curious why we know that we need it. Why are we delaying that assessment?
Mr. Lewicki.
Through the mayor to Councillor Monkoff Swain. Yeah, so we tried to, we can't do everything in 2023, so we were trying to spread things out a little bit so that we knew that this wasn't an immediate need. So yes, in 2024 and 2025, the idea was to do some siting and engagement on the concept and figure out what we're going to do with that, and then do a build in 2026, and then go back and reassess the existing park. So understanding that it's nice to have clarity around where a new park would be, we didn't feel that it was an immediate need that we wanted to capture in the 2023 budget right away. Now, if that's something that council wants to explore, obviously that's something that you can choose to do. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So with that being said, with all due respect to my councillor, I'll vote against this motion, and I'll tip my head that I'd like to see a motion come forward that brings up the future spray park site, that assessment in 2023. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll wrap this up right away. Councillor Tessier, then I got a comment and then we'll call for the vote.
That's a great point, and I'm all for moving the 10 grand into the 2023 budget to start the design as well for the new one. But at the end of the day, this one's going to be used for the next 5 to 10 years before that one's done. And these shed issues are been ongoing. So to do a little bit of extra reno, I don't see that spray park leaving anytime soon. So 25 grand to beautify it is going to go a long way.
Thank you, council. One last quick question. I think I understand the idea that the spray park needs a little more life to it. The next 25 grand wouldn't hurt. Let's move on with the vote here. So having said that, I will now ask council to vote on this motion. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote, please?
I'm in favor, Mayor. Good job, Councillor Tessier.
Thank you. Councillor Van Newkirk? Sorry, thank you. I see it there now. It passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. So are there any further questions, comments, concerns, motions on the balance of the renewal section of the capital budget on page 88? Renee, you got 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6. I'm just teasing you. You have something else you want to talk about on renewal? Need a second to find it? If you do, that's fine. Okay. See no further questions on renewal. Kathy, you're good on renewal? The balance of the renewal section?
Yes, I am.
All right, we're now into the growth section of the capital plan. Now, what I'd like to do, if we can, is there may be some questions and concerns on the growth section, which is good. So the first person to speak will pick the topic they want to talk about. And then we'll take questions from councilors on that topic before I go to a new one. I don't be jumping around between line by line. So I'll open up now to council to any questions, concerns, comments, motions on the growth portion of the capital budget on page 88. Anybody wish to begin with questions or comments? Councillor Tessier, you can begin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So can I add something to the growth then right now?
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll just keep rolling, Shalane. So. Thank you. I'll move that the Eco Station Phase 1 Sandy Dump Project be moved up to the 2023 capital budget.
Please
So-
speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. So this has been something I've brought up a bunch of times, and the design is $10,000. I don't think it's a huge ask to get that done. We did get a report back with a couple options for the campground or the operations yard. We looked at the operations yard as being the one that makes more sense in the short term and the long term. I don't think we're going to see a campground for a lot of years because that requires land, and I think the upgrades to the Lion Parks looks really good. But this is something we got to get on, and a lot of people have been asking about. attaining one of these. So I think it's a small ask just to put the design work into 2023 and gives us an option of construction for 2024.
Thank you. Before I ask other councillor questions, so I should probably ask this question, Mr. Dollar, Mr. DeBlanco. Would that be funded from reserves if we were moving into 2023, or how would that be funded, please? Just to refresh my memory more than anybody else's, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So it is a growth project. So it wouldn't be funded from reserves. It'd be funded from one of the other funding sources. So either grants or pay as you go.
Okay. Is there a recommendation from administration on how to fund this should the motion pass? Or is that an appropriate question to ask at this point? On behalf of Councillor Tessier?
For the $10,000 in 2023, as proposed, it's a small amount. We'd probably recommend it be pay as you go. The larger project would likely then be funded from grants.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any further questions from council on the motion before us? Councillor Muckroft-Swain, Sam, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I wonder if you could just help clarify on page 88, the 5 items in terms of what has an impact to the tax levy and what doesn't. If you could just clarify that up front, I think that'll help us as we go through these capital items. Grants, reserves, pay as you go, offset levy, debt. Which ones impact the tax levy, which ones don't?
Mr. DeBlanco.
So pay as you go, if there was an increase to that funding source, that would have a tax levy impact. Now, if that's assuming, the entire amount of pay as you go allocation would be used up and that there was more funding on a pay as you go basis required, debt would have an impact to the tax levy. So if a capital project was funded via debt, there is debt servicing requirements to the operating budget. Grants and using the pay as you go funding mechanism as stated here would not, reserves would not, and offsite levies would not.
Thank you.
Good question, actually, Sam. It's a good question. Any further questions? Oh, Councilor Newkirk, sorry, you had your hand up. I apologize. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. The eco station is one of the questions that I asked for some clarity on as well. The question I asked is, would the scope of the 2024 expenditure identify any associated roadway access egress issues that would exist by placing this in the operations yard, for instance? And the answer was the scope for 2024 will include identification of any issues with roadway ingress, egress, and other access concerns. However, prior to commencing any design and consideration of access concerns, a suitable location for the sandy dump must be finalized. So my question to administration is if this project would be moved from 2024 to 2023, what comprises this project? What do you start with first? Looking for a location? Like what would you do if you move this forward?
Oh, hang on, I got your button here. Okay, there you go. Oh, hang on. It switched on me. There you go.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. Yes, I think a study, part of the first thing we would do is look at location. And I know that this complicates it a little bit, but as of today, the extended producer responsibility regulation comes into effect. And so initially the idea is that this sandy dump was going to be integrated into the eco station. The idea behind proposing it for 2024 was to understand more about how that regulation will affect what we do as far as a design for the eco station and how that would integrate into the sandy dump or sandy station setup. If we proceed this year, we may have to just design a sandy dump without consideration of the eco station and what that means. So the rationale there was we just don't have all the details in place to understand and provide the best recommendation to move forward with. I would like to think that as administration, we would put a thoughtful design together that would include, eco station with SANI facilities together or not together, depending. But we just don't know what that regulation will mean for Beaumont and the eco station setup.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm an RV owner and I see how many RV owners there are in Beaumont, so I'm not against this project. But what I want to bring forward is just that. And it's to the comments that I made previously in the operations budget that so much thought has been put into this budget about timing and organizing thoughts and process. And this is another example of that. And we heard it already around, this would be best fit with, an eco station and, the sandy dump beside it. My concern isn't, we need an eco station in Beaumont. I agree. My concern is that we build it in a hurry in a spot that might not be the best place for it to go. Now, does waiting a year change that? I don't know if it changes it unless there's an ability to bring forward as part of next year's capital budget, the eco station with the sandy dump all wrapped in together, and there's a good spot for it. I just don't know, if I didn't support this and it didn't move forward, then, I hope that would the work in 2024 would make the eco station and whatnot come in 2025. So whether we spend the 10,000 this budget or next budget isn't the question for me. It's just what is the actual right spot for it. And, quite frankly, we might spend $10,000 trying to figure out what the right spot is. That it might take all of that just to do that, right? So, and then if we get new information on EPR and funding and grants of some kind, then that, that $10,000 that was spent might change because there's new information. I don't know.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say through the mayor to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, you're right. I mean, the problem is if we proceed with a design and we don't actually know what we're designing, like there might be an eco station component, there might not be an eco station component. The idea was to wait a year to understand what the outcomes of the EPR stuff was so that we could provide the best, put forward the best design and facility for Beaumont.
Yeah, and then the last thing that I'll say, Mayor, to the eco station is I've asked everyone who's asked me saying, why is there not an eco station? Why is there not an eco station? The first thing I say is, where do you think it should go? Everybody seems to think it should go in the operations yard. Sure. Then we're going to have RVs piled up on 510. The road's already too skinny. There's not enough room in the southeast corner where currently there's asphalt and concrete activities that are happening there all the time. There's trucks coming in and out. There's not room for RVs to turn. Then we have to build another access egress point so that we can drive in, drive out RVs, maybe from the southwest corner. I guess it's only money, but it's taxpayer money, and how do we know it's going to be in the right spot? So, the easy answer seems to be all the time build it in the operations yard, but I've driven in there. I know what it takes to have an RV. I have a 24-footer now. I used to have a 36-footer. There's a reason I have a 24-footer, but many people have the 30-footers, and it's not going to take too many RVs before you're piled up on the road and on the street and whatever else. So, and I know that, finding the right spot is going to consider all of those items, right? So anyhow, what I'm saying here is there's more to this conversation than just moving it forward. Just offer my thoughts. Not that we don't need one. We need one. So
Yeah, and
Councilor McCook,
can I answer to that, Mayor?
hang on. Renee, you want to answer back? Sure.
Good questions and good comments. This obviously, it's 100% needed, and how long do we wait, right? There's always something every year. My question to administration would be, what would the cost be to just get a design for an eco station and sandy station? Would $50,000 do that? 25?
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier. Yeah, I mean, we could do something for 25 to 30,000, I'm sure, but again, the problem is if we don't have the siting, right? And the other thing with the EPR regulation is, I don't know, and I haven't read it. I'll firmly admit that I haven't looked at it yet. I haven't had a chance, but maybe there's a possibility that it won't even go on city land. I don't know. I need to look at that more, but I just don't know what the EPR means for eco station for the city. So that's why we wanted to have an understanding of that before we move into siting and design, because as we say, maybe we're just looking at simply doing a sandy dump. Maybe all of that eco station work would be not a city issue anymore, and it would be somewhere else and not our concern. I don't want to state anything certain here, but I'm just saying we don't know specifically what that looks like at this point.
Okay, so when we got the report back for the Sandy station, I can't remember if that was mentioned, right? So it was on the 2 locations, right? And quotes for that amount. So are you saying that if you have $30,000, you can come up with a design for an eco station and Sandy station? Wherever it is, like at some point, other cities are doing it. It can't be impossible to figure out what we need to do for these 2 things.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, yes, we can put a design together, but it's not going to be site specific, right? Until we understand a location. So if we wanted to say it's going to go in the operations yard, yes, we could do a design for the sandy dump in the operations yard. We could do that.
I don't know if I really understand the answers to the question. So because we don't know a site because of the new regulations, is that what you're saying?
Basically, I'm saying that we don't have the clarity to fully understand what we would need to do for to incorporate into the design. A design would include access routes, grade concerns, things like that we would have to consider to be site specific concerns that we'd have to address as part of a design. So the idea is that, yes, you could come up with a general design if you wanted to, or if we wanted to focus right on the operations yard, we could do that as well if that's council's direction.
Okay, thank you. So if I change my motion, I say, here's $30,000, come up with a design for an eco station and sandy dump. Is that'll include 1 site, 2 sites and the design, or just the design with no sites?
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, we could, as part of that, we could put in some options for locations and do a general design for what a eco station and sandy dump would look like.
I know it's like, we got to do this at some point. Everyone's screaming for it, and 100% agree with the other councillors. Like, an eco station along with a sandy dump is, we can't wait 5-10 more years. It's just, we got to take care of that stuff and alleviate some of the stuff from going from the city of Leduc and county. So I guess I would like to take maybe some other opinions from council.
Yeah, Councillor Chess, we have 3 people want to make comments. Let's move on if we could. Appreciate that. Councillor Cook, followed by Councillor Monkoff-Swain, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Tessier kind of just said it, but I think the whole point of bringing this forward now is to kind of, there's clearly a lot to consider, and is to kind of get that ball rolling rather than waiting till 2024 to get that ball rolling, and then it takes forever. So is there a way to structure this, or and I don't know if it is 25 or 30,000, but to kind of start to have those conversations and start to get that design and planning piece put together and moving along. So we have some options and we have some things to look at, rather than just pushing it down the road and saying that we will one day.
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mr. Lewicki.
Yes, if council wishes for us to do siting and design for 2023, we can definitely support that.
Okay.
We were simply just trying to make sure that we were considering all of the aspects of the ERP regulation and making a decision based on best information we had at the time. If we want to go with that and we have to change it later, that's doable as well. We can look at that too.
And I think those are really important points. And I think they're, Councillor Van Newkirk brought up some important points as well, right? Just the backup on the roads and stuff like that. You know, we'll hear about it. So we want to make sure that when this is done and everything, we do it properly. While I recognize that it is important and we do have a lot of avid RVers in our city, I also want to make sure that we do it properly and we pick the right sites. Also for the long term as well. That will include our growth and everything. So thank you.
Thanks, Kat. I'm gonna go to Councilman Swain, followed by Councilman Newkirk, then back to you, Renee, in case you want to change things, but obviously councilors speak first. Sam?
Yeah, maybe I'll save if he's going to change his motion, I'll save it and wait to speak to whatever the new motion is, because it could be redundant. So I'll pass
Okay,
the floor.
sure.
Thank you.
Steve, do you wish to proceed? Oh, sorry, put your mic on first.
Yeah, all I was gonna do was just seek some clarity on what was being put forward. So the $10,000 for 2024, you know, the description of that project. So your initial thought was you just take that from 2024, put that 10 grand in 2023 and move forward with what's in that plan. And that plan that says it's going to provide for the assessment, scope and engineering selection, tender and construction of infrastructure necessary for a sandy dump to be placed into service. It says the preliminary plan is for the sandy dump to be located in the operations yard southeast corner and would see this as the location of an integrated eco station once fully developed. So if we took the spirit of what you initially put forward, it's just taking that 2024 project for 10 grand that's going to look at the southeast corner of the yard and move it to 2023. And so that's what was in front of us. What that doesn't do, and I don't know how much work administration has done on siting, or if this was a dart just thrown to say, hey, we could do this, right? So what this $10,000 doesn't get us is a look at siting. So what my question to Mr. Lewicki is, was admin throwing a dart saying, hey, we can start here? Or is there some work to do to make sure that we have cited this correctly within the community before we spend the 10 grand, to do this? Just some thoughts there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, thanks for catching that. I mean, the idea is that because we had pushed it to 2024, we would have that clarity to understand, okay, we could go with the ops yard or we couldn't, and we'd have more clarification. If we move it to 2023, I think we have an opportunity to do some exploration on what the best site would be for the location. So yes, I would suggest that as Councillor Tessier indicated, that if we move that amount to say 30,000, that maybe we would have adequate funds to consider the scope of eco station and sandy dump design as well as siting concerns.
Yeah, and that's where I was kind of going. That's where my next comment was going to be. There might be an opportunity for phasing of this project as well. So anyways, I just wanted to point out for clarity that moving this forward, if we just did that, it didn't look at siting. So I'll wait for you to amend your motion if that's what you're going to do.
Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, and thanks for all the comments. And I'm going to amend my motion. Sorry about that, but I'll just increase it to $30,000 for siting and design for sandy dump and eco station. And that way, just from the conversations, both are needed, but that way we have a design and it can be a staged in approach, as right now we have nothing for either. So at least we'll get the design work, know what it costs to build it and where it is. As even at this point, people ask us and we have zero answers for location, design, anything moving forward. So
Just wait for a moment for Commissioner to put up on the screen. And then you agree with the wording, and then we'll go on to discuss the motion as amended. Oh, sorry. Ms. Winter, Ms. Bajaya. I know whose mic is there. Oh, Ms. Bajaya, please.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to ask if we could take a 2-minute recess because we've had a couple of draft motions come to us, and it would be helpful if we could confer with our friends in finance.
Absolutely. 2-minute recess, please. All right, we are ready to dance again here. Are we still live? Yes, thank you very much. We are live, sorry. We are live. And we had our intermission there. Thank you very much. Ms. Winter, could you put the revised amendment, a revised motion on the screen? I'll give you a chance to speak to that. Or Mr. Lewicki, you have your hand up as well. Ms. Winter, you want to go first or Mr. Lewicki? That's okay. Mr. Lewicki.
Sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Tessier. I was chatting with my colleagues about the amount, and we were thinking about if we want to do engagement and actually take do a real thorough job of the siting and figure out what the design should look like, we should probably ask for about $75,000 as opposed to 30. Sorry for that.
Mayor,
Ms. Winter?
can I just speak to process first before Councillor Tessier weighs in on that?
Yes, please.
So I'm going to ask Councillor Tessier to withdraw his first motion because the new motion that we have is quite different with going into design work, eco station, sanity dump, 40,000 versus 30,000. Now I'm hearing 75,000 on the table. So if Councillor Tessier is willing to withdraw his first motion that I had drafted for him, and then if Councillor Tessier just wants to speak to Mr. Lewicki with regards to the 75,000, I can always change it from that point.
Councillor Tessier.
Thank you very much. I will withdraw my first motion. And to the point of $75,000, it's obviously more, but we got to do these things right. So I agree with you. If you need more money to do it right, because once it's in, those things stay there for the longest time. And cities are, built around it, and those things end up being permanent solutions to what we need. And it's going to be asked and asked and asked. And I think it's a great idea to get the public involved, and they're going to be really happy to hear that it's being looked into, right? And construction will begin in 2024. So thank you. Yeah, so we can amend that motion to 75,000, please. And I will move that $75,000 be added to the 2023 capital budget for the purpose of siting and design work for a sanitary dump and eco station.
Thank you, Councillor. We've speak to your motion. We've
I think
briefly speak to your motion.
the way you're all looking at me, I think I've spoken enough for this evening.
Thank you.
I think I read.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that.
I
Go,
think
you
that-
opened the door, I just stepped through. Okay, good enough. Discussion on the motion, please. Councillor Barnhart, is your hand up by any chance? I'm just asking.
It isn't up, Mayor, but I do have a question. The source of the funding, is this pay as you go, or is this coming out of grants? I can't find that quickly.
You read my mind, Councillor. Mr. DeBlanc or Mr. Dollar, who wishes to tackle that hot potato?
Thanks for the question through to Councillor Barnhart. So the source of the funding, what administration will recommend is we take whatever the adjustments, amendments in the final capital budget and come back at the time of capital budget approval at the following, and we'll have presented what the proposed funding source is. I wouldn't be comfortable making a recommendation at this time. All I will say it will likely be either grants or pay as you go.
Good enough. You're good, Councillor?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion, Council? Seeing none, I will ask Council to vote on the motion. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
I am in favor, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart, and that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Administration. I appreciate that. It is 8:56, and with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at this time, and we will reconvene at 5 o'clock tomorrow to continue on with the growth portion of the capital budget on page 88. Thank you all for attending. Enjoy your evening. Drive safe when you go home, and we'll see you tomorrow.